Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for today's STS-119 Crew News Conference. We'll start with opening remarks from the crew and then take questions. Commander Lee Archambault will be leading this crew on a 14-day mission to the International Space Station. Previously, he served as the pilot of STS-117 in June 2007. Lee?
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks very much for joining us today. We're very proud to be able to share basically who we are and what we're going to do for our next mission, STS-119. So before we field any questions, I'd like to take a few minutes just to introduce all our crew members, and that will maybe help you further direct any questions you have after the introductions. To my immediate left is our pilot, Tony Antonelli. Tony is on his first flight with the space program. He was a 1989 graduate of MIT, joined the Navy shortly thereafter, spent about 6 years flying F-18s, had crews aboard the USS Nimitz, became a test pilot after he went to the U.S. Air Force test pilot school, and did some avionics testing out at China Lake. Joined NASA in the year 2000, and he's been working at NASA as a very experienced Capcom here most recently, and prior to that working a lot of our external tank and SRB and SSME issues. We got paired up with Tony here about a little over a year ago when the crew was assigned in October of 2007. And Tony is going to be on this flight, in addition to obviously being our pilot. Tony's going to be our space shuttle robotic arm operator, lead robotic arm operator, as well as doing a lot of the airlock duties, getting our EVA team ready for all the EVAs. To Tony's left is our mission specialist number 1, Joe Wakata. Joe also is on his very first mission here at NASA. Joe comes to us from, originally was born and raised in the Los Angeles area, Southern California. Anaheim is where he grew up and considers his home. He's got a geology degree, both a bachelor's and a master's. Joe spent some time as a geologist there in the LA area. Went on from there, served 2 years in the Peace Corps and down in the Dominican Republic. And then after that, he actually, right after that, he went to the Bahamas as a island manager for a marine research center. Joe went from there and served about 4 or 5 years as a teacher in the state of Florida, joined us in the year 2004, joined NASA in the year 2004. And on our flight, in addition to being MS-1, which is a flight deck engineer for both the ascent and entry phase of flight, Joe will also be assisting Tony with some of the shuttle robotic arm operations. Tony is part of our 3-man EVA team, and specifically, Joe will perform 2 EVAs out the door and the other 2 as our task IV inside the cockpit. To Joe's left is Steve Swanson. Swanee and I were crew members together on STS-117. In addition, we came to NASA in 1998 together, so I've known Swanee for a while. Swanee comes to us from Colorado and ultimately got a PhD out of Texas A&M. And prior to joining NASA as an astronaut, he worked for about 10 or 11 years for NASA as a shuttle training aircraft engineer and flight engineer. Swanee's main role, in addition to being the MS-2, the flight deck engineer on ascent entry, will be to be our lead EVA crew member. He's responsible for the planning and execution of all 4 EVAs. He'll perform 3 of those himself out the door, and one of them he'll be the task IV inside the shuttle cockpit. To Swanee's left is Ricky Arnold. Ricky on his first mission as well. He and Joe are classmates here at NASA, came to us in 2004. Ricky's got a background that looks like a State Department person. He originally was born and raised in the Baltimore area, Bowie, Maryland to be specific, and he spent about 15 years teaching around the world, countries such as Morocco, Romania, Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, as well as here in the United States. I mentioned he joined us at NASA in 2004. He's been working on several payload issues in and around the office, and was assigned to us, of course, as I said, in October of 2007. During the flight, Ricky is going to be the right-hand man for Steve Swanson as far as coordinating all our EVAs. Ricky, like Swanee, will perform 3 EVAs out the door and 1 as a task IV. In addition, Ricky is our photo TV crew member, responsible for all of our photo TV operations. So if you don't like any of the photo or TV ops, that's the guy to come talk to. To Ricky's left is our crew's elder statesman, John Phillips. John's been here at NASA since 1996. Originally, he was a Navy man, Naval Academy graduate, and he flew A-7s in the Navy for about 10 years. Cruised a couple of times, a couple hundred, almost 300 carrier landings, And after that, after his 10-year stint in the Navy, he went back to school, got a PhD, physics, and served for a number of years at Los Alamos prior to joining NASA in the year 1996. John has got about, if you want to add up flight days in space, he's got about 90% of our crew's experience level. He served aboard STS-119 as an MS-2, and then he later on was an engineer on Expedition 11. So he's our one person on our crew who's got long-duration space flight. So John, again, has the overwhelming majority of our experience, and we're going to leverage that experience on our flight. John is going to be the space station robotics arm operator for our crew. He'll do a lot of our mid-deck. He's our mid-deck captain, so he's in charge of a lot of our mid-deck operations, which, as you probably know, is quite busy, both in the post-insertion immediately after we get to orbit and just prior to deorbit. And John has got the unique, I guess, trademark as being a flight engineer on 3 different spacecraft, that being the shuttle, the Soyuz, and also the International Space Station. And finally, to John's left is our shuttle rotating expedition crew member, Koichi Wakata. Koichi comes from Japan. He's part of the Japanese Space Agency. He's flown 2 missions already on shuttle, and both times he flew with a very experienced commander, Brian Duffy. So now he'll get a chance to see what it's like on the other side. Koichi as a member of our crew, but also a future member of Expedition 18. He goes up as our crew member, but shortly after we dock on Flight Day 3, Koichi immediately becomes a member of Expedition 18. However, that's not the last our crew members will see at Koichi. He's going to be doing a lot of work, particularly with John Phillips, on all the robotics operations through the duration of the mission. So you'll see and hear from Koichi a lot during our docked operations as he and John work together on the space station robotic arm. So that's our crew. Of course, I'm very proud of all of these guys. They bring an enormous amount of wealth, spaceflight experience, as well as just knowledge in other fields that we're going to really leverage on this mission. And so with that, I'll turn it over to you guys for questions. So thank you very much.
All right, we're going to start with questions here at the Johnson Space Center. If you'll please identify yourself and your media organization.
Thank you. It's Mark Carreau from the Houston Chronicle, and I think this is for Lee, but any crew member. This is the last of the solar power modules. They've been pretty interesting every time they're flown to be installed, and I guess I'm wondering kind of what your lesson learned from the past experience that you guys have taken and are applying to this mission in terms of fulfilling the installation.
Well, Mark, as you know, for the most part, our installation is done EVA. So I'm going to let Steve Swanson, our lead EVA man, answer that question. Swanee could probably give you some actual specifics as they pertain to EVAs and some of those lessons learned.
Well, thanks, Lee. What we've learned, of course, from the other missions is the process of putting them on and deploying the solar arrays is to take some time, let the solar arrays bake out during that process. So the last couple, like from 117, when we deployed those solar arrays, they went fine. We learned that lesson earlier on how to deploy them. As for hooking them up, we're doing the exact same way that the 120 crew did on the P6 to P5 operation. And so we're going to use those same techniques they used on actually attaching S6 to S5 and use the same ideas then from all the other missions, what we've seen before. I guess we're just, as you pointed out, we're going to use the lessons learned from them on how to do it properly, and hopefully everything will go great.
Oh, I might just ask a follow-up. In general terms, in terms of your preparations and training, are you going into this expecting some surprises or prepared for them if they come? I don't know if you can kind of characterize that a little bit, but what's your kind of mindset?
We are definitely prepared for all sorts of contingencies. We've trained for them in the pool and on the hardware. And these are things that people have thought of that might happen or have happened. The first solar array they deployed with Joe Tanner and Carlos Noriega, they had issues on that one. And so we've learned a lot from that and learned how to handle those problems they had. And we've trained for those. We've also tried to think of anything else that could go wrong. And so we've gotten overall training on just how the solar array works itself in great detail. So that hopefully we can handle anything that goes wrong with it.
Mark, just want to add to that. Just we have retracted and redeployed some solar array wings in the past. Some have gone better than others. There's some lessons learned. John Phillips is actually going to be our person coordinating the effort when we actually deploy these solar array wings. Of course, none of the solar array wings we've had have been deployed before, although one of them has been in the box for about 8 years now. And John might want to add a couple things about that he'll be looking for as he leads the team of astronauts as we deploy these solar array wings.
Sure. Well, the actual deployment, and by deployment I mean when we unfold the blankets, which are pleated together in a box, and we unfold them to their full length of about 34 meters each blanket. That happens not during a spacewalk. In fact, our whole crew is inside, and in fact, each of us has a job at that point. We're all gathered, most of us in the United States laboratory. Tony Antonelli is the exception. He's doing about 3 jobs at once over on the shuttle flight deck. But we've got guys who are dedicated to for example, watch tension reels to make sure that there's not too much tension on the arrays. Another guys who are counting the bays as they come out of the what's called the mass canister. And I've got my finger on the abort button. And we do this all in a very carefully planned way. The ground does a lot of the action of unbolting the blankets, of the blanket boxes, for example. And then we deploy each solar array wing about halfway. And we do this at the beginning of a sunlit pass. And a sunlit pass is, roughly 60 minutes. And so we unfold an array halfway, and then we let it bake for most of the rest of the sunlit pass. And then before we go into nightfall, we deploy it the other halfway. And then we do the same thing for the second array on the next day pass. So we have a careful scheme that stood the test of time. It stood the test of the last couple of arrays, and it seems to work fine. And we're hoping it will. Like I said, I've got my finger on the abort button at all times, and we are a little concerned because these arrays have been in the box longer than any of the others. But I think the method that's proven itself on the last couple of deployments will work here as well.
Yeah, Jim Obrick for NBC. Question for Joe and Ricky primarily. The strength of a crew is the way the diverse skills are tied together. And you have, aside from your technical qualifications, which are first rate, you have training and you have educational background. Can you describe to me how you think some of the education experience you've had has helped you contribute to the development of the crew and to your mission?
Said your name first, Joe.
You did? Well, I think when you look at what teachers do every day, it's really an operational background. I mean, teachers have to think on their feet. They have to adjust all the time, and I think that's part of what we do. We train for specific things, but you never really know exactly what's going to happen. And I think bringing that skill as a teacher is really beneficial. When we come back and when we're up on orbit, we may see things that these guys might not notice as an educator that we might want to make note of, and when we come back, we'll try to share that with teachers to help them inspire students. So I see it's the skills that we bring with us, but then also once we're up there, just identifying things that the public might find interesting and we might be able to use to inspire students.
All I can add is that the schools are big teams, and this is a big team that's going to pull off the mission. You have folks here, you have folks on the ground, we have our training team back here, and you need to be able to work well together. And all the folks here have really great people skills, and that's something you definitely need in a school as well.
Thank you.
Robert Perlman with CollectSpace.com. If for any of you that want to take it, if you launch on the 12th, you'll be arriving at the space station on the 14th on Valentine's Day, and you're an all-male crew, but you're greeting Sandy Magnus as you get there. Do you all have boxes of chocolates and flowers packed away to greet and welcome the holiday?
No, we don't, but we do have some gifts for all the station crew members, and we'll present those to them when we get up there. But actually, no, to be honest, it's funny you mentioned that. That kind of gets me off the hook on Valentine's Day a little bit. But no.
Hi, this is Ayako Kumi from NHK. If I can address this to the commander. As you mentioned, Koichi is going to be the expedition crew member once docked, but you were doing the training with him. I was wondering if you can share how he was during those training and how he was, he participated. I mean, his performance was.
Koichi, what do you think?
It's a tough question.
No, actually, Koichi's been a real joy to work with. We're real proud to have Koichi not only a member of our team, but also Expedition 18. he's got a tough balancing act during his training. His International Space Station training schedule is quite busy, and it's difficult to overlap with our STS-119 training. But he's bent over backwards numerous times to be as much a part of our team as he is going to be part of the Expedition 18 team. And you know, when we first started assigning duties on this mission as who would do what at what time, it would be easy as a commander for me to not include Koichi, because it's difficult on his part to be at all of our training. But he's made himself so available, and he is considered to be one of the very best robotics arm operators in the entire office. We couldn't help but use those skills. So we're going to be using Koichi quite a bit, and to his credit, he was there every single time we needed him to be there in training. He's added a lot to our team, and I can't imagine how we could have how we would be able to complete this mission without using Koichi to the level we were doing.
Jill Tolk, representing the Buoy Blade News. I have a question for Ricky or Joe. It's similar to Jim Oberg's. Since two of you are Educator astronauts and you're flying together on a shuttle, are there any special things you have planned to discuss in orbit for show and tell?
Your name came first.
My name came up first. I think our flight director explained earlier, the timeline is so busy, and we have the mission is so complex. We just don't have time for educational type payloads. Hopefully that'll come one day on station, and or continue on station as it has been. But we believe there is an opportunity at one point for an educational downlink. The details are being worked out right now, and I don't know much more about that, but I'm sure Nicole can give you some details after.
I have nothing to add to that.
Gina Sinceri, ABC News for Dominic Antonelli. What do you view as the most challenging robotics that you'll have to perform on this mission?
Most of the really challenging robotics are going to be done from the station arm, and so John and Koichi and Sandy will be doing that. Because of the assembly sequence getting changed throughout the flow, the S6 truss in the payload bay is in a position with the rest of the stack that we can't pull the S6 truss out of the payload bay with the space shuttle robotic arm. So John's going to pull the S6 truss out of the shuttle payload bay, which will probably be one of the most difficult robotics moves of our mission. He'll pull it up out of the bay, spin it around. Joe and I, with the shuttle arm, will grapple the S6 truss, and so the grappling of the S6 truss will probably be part of the most complicated robotic stuff we do. John's going to reconfigure the arm, move it down to the end of the truss. Joe and I will move the S6 just to about the limits of what the shuttle arm can reach. John's going to reach back and grab the S6, and then, of course, do the S6 install. And that, combined with pulling the S6 out of the truss, are probably the most complicated robotics. The other robotics work that quite a few of us will be doing, we'll take turns, is the Flight Day 2 inspection, and then the late inspection right after undocking. It's pretty much a standard inspection at this point. We don't do it on every mission, but exactly the same, but it's getting pretty close to standard.
Bill Harwood, CBS News for maybe Mr. Arnold. It's been a while since we've attached P6, I guess, and this is S6. Can you walk us through, not the solar array deploy per se, but the 4-bar linkage and all the stuff you guys have to unlatch to an EVA-1 to get it ready for deploy? Can you just give us some detail on that process?
Yeah, it's quite a bit of choreography going on there, because John and Koichi are going to be getting the S6 in position. And when they have it in position, Swanee and I will go out the door and make our way to the interface where we're going to mate the S6 truss. And from there, we have 4 attachment points with bolts to bolt the 2 pieces of the truss together. And we basically, it's like back in your car in the garage. We'll be, oh, come on, John, a little bit closer, a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, and they will fly it into position where we can then drive the bolts. So while Swanee's going around driving the bolts, we're going to attach some grounding straps. We're going to go ahead and make sure that the 2 truss interfaces are mated. And once that's all done, we then have to make some electrical connections and some data connections, and then head on out to get the solar arrays deployed, the blanket boxes deployed. The blanket boxes are in a launch configuration now. Swanee's going to be doing some stuff to get the mass canisters ready. And while he's doing that, I'm going to be removing some launch locks that are holding the blanket boxes containing the solar arrays. And I have 4 of those launch locks in total that I have to remove. So the once the launch locks are removed, the arrays are able to move away from the truss, and Swanee's done his work on the mass canisters. They're able to move away from the truss, and basically when we release them, we're expecting that they're going to largely go out on their own, deploy on their own, but we probably have to give them a little bit of a shove to get them in position. So now we have the mass canisters spread away from the truss with the blanket boxes still together. We're going to make our way up onto the mass canisters, and then we have to pull the blanket boxes out into the deployed position. So it's a pretty complex EVA. We got a lot of robotics going on. We have a lot of different kinds of work to do, but we're hoping that when we're all done, we'll come back inside, and if we don't need a focused inspection the next day, we're going to be able to go ahead and deploy the arrays.
Thanks. And a real quick one for any EVA guy. When you look at all the tasks that you have across these 4 spacewalks, what are maybe the top 2 or 3 that you guys focus on in terms of something that's either tricky or complicated, or maybe your priority list of, I don't know, challenging, or how you view some of those tasks?
Well, I'll take that one, I guess. Definitely the EVA-1 is probably the one we focused on the most. It is the most important part of the mission for us, is to make sure the solar array gets deployed. So we've worked on that the most. We've also, as I said before, worked on all the contingencies for that quite a bit and gotten ready for that. After that, we've had a multitude of tasks where some have changed during our training, so we've kept changing what we're doing. And the way we look at that, they're all pretty much equal in the training we've given them and their priority for us, and we're willing to change those as needed and do what the program wants to get all those other ones done. I think we have Cedar Car relocate, and maybe your Lee Lube might be something that would be a high priority for the program.
Mary Ann Dyson with National Space Society. The Columbia Crew Survival Report just came out last week, and I wondered if there were any changes to your entry procedures as a result of that report.
No, there are not.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, other questions?
Hi, Greg Dobbs with, pardon me, with a bad voice and with HDNet Television. 2 questions, if I may. First, probably to Steve Swanson. In view of the loss of the tool bag on the EVA in November, are there any new procedures, or do you just repeat the same procedures and hope it doesn't happen again?
What we've added for us, of course, is to be very diligent, which they were too, but things happen, is a check before we go out, actually the night before. We're going to have the task IV, the person who's inside, choreographing the spacewalk, come and verify the tool setup in the bags prior to going out.
Is that something that had not previously been a part of the procedure?
No, it's just up to the crew members who are going out to verify exactly what was going on. So now we're going to make it a formal process where the task IV double checks everything.
Okay, thank you. And Commander, you said you were off the hook for Valentine's. I'd like to put you halfway back on. What are you taking up to the expedition crew?
We bring them a couple. Yeah, it's a surprise. You left. That's right. I was about ready to say something, but we'll bring them a couple nice crew shirts that we'll use for our crew photo.
Is that all?
That we can say right now.
Yes, I'm Taku Tsuchiya from Nippon TV. My question is to John and Koichi. Captain talked about John's experience, and you served 6 months in ISS. And did you give any advice to Koichi, and what was John's advice about living in ISS?
You know, when Koichi and I have worked together in training for this flight, it's mostly been involved robotics. And, you know, I don't remember us talking too much about life in orbit. I can give him some advice right now. And it just, you know, on a space shuttle flight, which lasts about 2 weeks, our schedules are very tightly controlled, and we have to complete that day's work on that day. That's often not the case on the space station. On the space station, if you cannot complete your work today, you can complete it tomorrow. And so my advice to Koichi right now is if you don't finish your work, don't worry about it too much. Let the ground reschedule it for tomorrow.
That's after we leave.
That's right. We have plenty of time. And John actually, he flew as a flight engineer on the Soyuz spacecraft, and he spent there for 6 months. And as I went through the Soyuz training, I had a lot of knowledge from him during those robotics and after hours, and those are very beneficial information that I had. And I really thank you for that.
Okay, with that, we're going to switch to the Kennedy Space Center where we have some reporters present.
Yes, this is Marcia Dunn of the Associated Press. I'd like to ask each of the two teachers, do you miss teaching, and how does being an astronaut compare to being a teacher? Which is harder, better? Just a little perspective, please.
Well, I can say being an astronaut is very cool. It's a pretty nice job, but I know I definitely miss teaching, miss being in the classroom. That was definitely a job that I felt I was made to do until I was offered this one. So I want to enjoy this while I can. Definitely when you go back to the classroom, any experience that you have and you can take back to your students is a benefit to them. So hopefully once I've had a long and prosperous career here with NASA, I can go back to the classroom someday.
I agree with what Joe just said. Teaching's a great profession. I worked at it for 15 years and certainly miss it, but I really enjoy the challenges of this job as well.
Are either of you taking anything to symbolize teachers or teaching into space with you for the flight?
Joe.
I'm flying a couple of things for the schools that I taught at. But thanks, Ricky.
Yeah, we'll take a few things for some of the schools where we either went to school or where we worked.
Thank you. And for Mr. Wakata, are you going to be eating U.S. and Russian food for your stay up there, or are you taking up some Japanese provisions that will be just for you?
Actually, I'll be eating all of them. And my crewmates on the station side, Mike Fink and Sandy Magnus and Yuri Lonchikov, they are already starting to eat the Japanese food, the JAXA, together with the, well, I hope not, but maybe. We have in Japan, through JAXA, 28 new Japanese menus were developed, and I should be able to eat all of them, and I'm very much looking forward to it.
Will that be enough for your entire stay, or is that just for a few weeks?
Well, I think I will be able to eat a variety of foods, U.S. food and Russian food, and many of the Japanese food. So previous 2 flights, I flew less than 2 weeks, and I didn't mind eating anything. So this time, I think I have a variety of food, so it's going to be much better than those 2 previous flights.
Hi, this is James Dean from Florida Today. And first, for the commander, I just wondered if you could offer a couple of big picture comments about the mission goals of what you'll achieve by completing the station's power source and making it look symmetrical, and just your feelings about being about a month from your launch date.
Well, sure. We're of course very proud to be on this mission. We're proud to be on any mission that NASA flies. In particular, this one, we are, as you know, bringing the last truss segment up, and it'll be the final complement to the power for the space station. The Swanee and I, we kind of went up on mission 13A or STS-117, however you want to look at it, and we kind of had we were able to say we balanced the space station out. When we looked at it, it would look balanced, and since then NASA's unbalanced, and now we're going to get a chance to balance it out again. So it's it'd be kind of nice to get those pictures as we back off. And one of the things that way we're going to provide those pictures is when we do undock and do this nice fly around, and maybe this might be a good time for Tony Antonelli to share with us what we're going to be looking at and how we're going to perform that fly around, so the pictures that you do see of this beautiful space station completely balanced. And so I'll let Tony explain to you a little bit about that.
The undocking, separation, and fly arounds become pretty standard. I think we've changed where we separate from a handful of years ago, but now it's pretty standard. We'll basically back out, hopefully the same way that Brew brings us in and docks on flight day 3. We'll back out to 450 feet or so. Hopefully the sun will be coming up right about the time we get there, if the timing works out right. If not, we'll wait for the sun to come up, because we know those pictures of the station looking just about like the artists have been drawing it for so many years. Now we're going to take photographs that way. I think Brew already mentioned Ricky's our photo TV guy, so hopefully those pictures come out well. Yes, my part is to fly it right down the middle so that so he can see the whole thing and take a good picture. If the consumables, the propellant consumables allow, we'll do one lap around the station, and then we'll head out from there.
Thank you. And again, for the Educator astronauts, obviously you're trained just like the rest of the crew and conducting spacewalks. And I just wonder if you see yourself differently from any other members of the crew, since your roles don't seem to emphasize as much the Educator component. How are you blending those, and do you feel like you're any different from the rest of the astronaut corps, or do you feel you're treated as the same as the rest?
Maybe I'll pass that on after I answer and see what they say about it. But I mean, I feel, and we've integrated as like any other member of the astronaut corps, and I think it was pretty evident when Steve Lindsay, the chief of the office, assigned both me and Ricky to this flight. He wasn't looking at, hey, we're going to fly 2 teachers. He, was looking for astronauts to fill the slots with a certain skill set, and I think we fill those. So these guys have treated us like anybody else, and everyone else in the office has been very supportive of the program. So it's been great.
Just like we didn't want to tell you the answers to what the presents we were going to bring to the station crew, all the things we exclude Joe and Ricky from, we don't tell them that they're excluded. So they don't know that yet. It's all good.
Okay, I believe that was our last question from Kennedy Space Center, so we'll now switch over to headquarters.
Thank you. This is Tarek Malik from Space.com and Space News, and my first question is for John Phillips. John, it's been a while since you were at the space station, and it's much different than when you were on there before. And I'm just curious what you're looking forward to most when you arrive and take a look around. Thanks.
Well, thanks for the question, Tarek. This is going to be different for me. This will be my 3rd trip, and from the first trip to the second trip, all that was added was a couple of airlocks. The living spaces hadn't changed much, but now in the 3.5 years since I've been there have been some major changes. There's been the Node 2, the Japanese lab, the Columbus lab, and the whole truss structure has gone up. And of course, once you're inside, what you notice is the pressurized volume, and that has roughly doubled. And so for me, it's going to be a mixture of a little nostalgia, seeing the little compartment that I lived in for 6 months, and seeing the places that haven't changed. The kitchen in the Russian service module, for example, hasn't changed. So I have a little nostalgia to see those places that were my home for 6 months. But I also think it's going to be really cool to see the nice, new, bright, shiny modules that I've never seen and frankly don't know all that much about. So I'm looking forward to seeing the whole thing.
Hey, Koichi, why don't you were up on STS-119. Why don't you go ahead and maybe you can add a few comments on what your perspective is going to be.
That's right. When I flew on STS-92, that's ISS Flight 3A, we delivered the first truss component of the International Space Station, which is Z1 truss, which was 18,000 pounds, a little smaller than our S6 truss, which weighs 32,000 pounds. And back in that time, nobody was living aboard the International Space Station. About a month after our flight, the first crew, commanded by Bill Shepard, went up and started to live. So when we went there, nobody was living in the space station. It was so small. It was a little bigger than my apartment in Tokyo. But now it's more than 3 times the size now. And as John said, it'll be very interesting to see this expanded International Space Station, and I'm very lucky to be able to serve on this flight to deliver the last component of the truss segment of the International Space Station as well.
Thank you. And my follow-up is just for the first-time space flyers. For whoever would like to take it, I'm just curious if there's one moment that you're looking forward to most. Thanks.
Tony, why don't we start with you, and then we'll right down the ladder there.
Okay, I think 2 are pretty high on the list. Of course, the launch and the ascent is right up there, and then the next part is the undocking, separation, and fly around. Actually getting to fly the spaceship with my hands on the controls. Those are the top two on my list.
Yeah, for me, I think just looking out the window back at the Earth is going to be a spectacular view. And then again, I hear doing an EVA, you just having the unobstructed views of the Earth is just fantastic. So I'm looking forward to going outside and looking at that.
Definitely looking forward to going out the door for the first time, and also looking forward to Tony's fly around to see the result of our work after we pull away.
Tracy Watson, USA Today, for Dr. Phillips. You spent a lot of time up there. Why are you going back for more?
This is what I do. You know, I'm an astronaut. Our job is to operate spacecraft. I signed up to do this. It's what I always wanted to do, and I want to do it as much as I can.
Okay, that's our last question from headquarters. Do we have any remaining follow-ups here at JSC?
Still Greg Dobbs with HDNet Television. John Phillips, you talked earlier about the sunlit passes and unfolding the solar array halfway and then letting it bake. What's the timeline within roughly that hour of the sunlit pass? How long to unfold? How long does it bake?
If I remember right, it's about 10 minutes to unfold halfway.
Between 5 and 10.
Between 5 and 10. So we would basically push a button that starts the mass the mass that holds the two solar blankets. We start it out of its canister, and when we get to, and a couple of the guys are counting the bays as they come out, and after somewhere in the 5 to 10 minute range, I don't remember how much actually, we press the abort button and it stops, and then we use up most of the rest of the daylight pass to heat up the array and bake it out and let all the pleats unfold if they can, and then we'll do the other 50%. Then we do it again the next day. Day being 90 minutes, that is.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, Jill.
Jill Tolk for the Bowie Blade News. We've had a pretty serious press conference right now, so let's lighten up a tiny bit. What do you all do for fun when you have a moment to breathe? For anyone who'd like to take it.
We're all pretty, I don't know if we're pretty athletic anymore, but we used to be at one point in our life. So personally, I enjoy bike riding. I used to be a hockey player, so I still enjoy skating, although my skills have gone down a bit over the years, and I don't do it as much anymore. But we do spend a lot of time in the gym, and that's actually a very important part of our lives still, to be able to get to the gym. As busy as our schedules are, it's quite important to maintain a little bit of sanity in your life and get to the gym an hour or two a day. And so that's a big part of what we try to emphasize in our training here. So we do spend a lot of time together and on our own in the gym.
We have one follow-up over on this side.
Marianne Dyson with National Space Society. A lot of our members like to keep a little window open on their computer and watch your stuff in real time. What is likely to be during the work day that we could flip up and watch that you think would be really especially good to see? Watch you sleeping. You're going to be sleeping during all of the daytime. There's not going to be anything like early in the morning, late at night that would be, especially in the evenings maybe, that we could plan to tune in and watch?
Ricky, you want to talk a little bit about our what we're going to try and do, time permitting, on a daily basis?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the time frame. It'll be their morning time, though. I believe we're about 180 out on our time from the rest of you folks here. But at the end of each mission day, before we're getting ready to go to bed, probably about the time folks are just getting to work, we want to send down kind of a summary of what we've done during the day. So we're going to put together a flight day highlights and featuring everyone, and we will send the signal down to the ground. We'll go out on NASA television, and we'll pass around the handheld microphone and just talk about what we were doing in the images you're seeing.
So end of each day there'll be a special
right
report we can watch.
That's right.
Good.
Your morning.
Your morning,
In our
but
mornings.
we're getting ready to go to bed, so we're going to do it right before we go to bed. But that'll be in your morning time.
Our mornings. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hi, my name is Toshi Katsuda of Asahi Shimbun, Japanese daily newspaper. I'm just wondering who is the first person to try the processed water?
Oh, yeah.
Let's turn that over to Koichi. He might.
I guess I have to take it, but I'll be happy to. And I tried in the training sessions, and then I would like to be the person, but it's still TBD.
We all voted for Koichi as well.
How about you, Commander? Want to try? Want to try first?
I don't think it'll be ready for us.
Yeah, it's not going to be operational while we're there.
We'll be putting into it.
Thank you.
Okay, any remaining follow-up questions here at Johnson Space Center? Okay, with no further questions, we'll conclude today's briefing. There'll be a brief photo opportunity in the auditorium lobby following this. Thank you very much for joining us.